Welcome to Crossdressing Stories. Here, we share personal stories, celebrate self-expression. If you're on your own journey or simply curious, you've found your community. Subscribe and join the conversation.
There are moments in life that act as hinges, silently swinging open doors we never knew existed. They rarely announce themselves with trumpets or fanfare. More often, they arrive in the form of a simple question, a quiet gesture of kindness, or a safe space offered when we need it most. This story is about one such weekend, a small island of time where the person I was supposed to be was given leave, and the person I truly was finally given permission to breathe. It wasn't a transformation, it was a homecoming. The text message glowed on my phone, a lifeline in the middle of a loud, suffocating week. It was from my cousin, Chloe. "Hey, roommate's gone for the weekend. My place is all yours if you want to crash for some chill time and catch up." It sounded like salvation. A long overdue visit, a temporary escape from the performative noise of my shared apartment, and a quiet weekend with the only person who ever bothered to look past the person I was supposed to be. But Chloe had a way of turning chill weekends into tectonic shifts in my life. I arrived on Friday night, the city's grime clinging to my skin. I carried just a duffel bag and wore my standard issue armor, a faded hoodie, worn-out jeans, and scuffed sneakers. She opened the door with a grin that could launch ships or start revolutions, her eyes holding that familiar, dangerous sparkle. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like coconut shampoo and something warm, like baked sugar. "Let me see what you brought," she said, peeking into my bag before I could even set it down. Her smile faltered for a comedic second. "Oh, honey, you brought the uniform." "The uniform?" I raised an eyebrow, a familiar dance of defense starting in my chest. "You said we were hanging out." "We are," she said, tugging me inside with an undeniable force. "But we're giving him the weekend off." I followed her into the apartment, the door clicking shut behind me with a finality that felt like a key turning in a lock, sealing away my public identity. Her place was a sanctuary of soft textures and gentle scents. Vanilla candles flickered on the bookshelf, and the air was thick with warmth and comfort. The living room was a landscape of cozy chaos, plush blankets draped over the sofa, a mountain of throw pillows, a stack of fashion magazines, and an array of scented lotions scattered across the coffee table like polished stones. I dropped my bag, a cautious knot tightening in my stomach. "What do you mean, giving him the weekend off?" She didn't answer directly. Instead, she tossed me a plush, lavender-colored towel. "Shower first. You've got bus grease on your neck, and you look like you've been holding your breath for a week." "And then?" I asked, my voice wary. A grin spread across her face, the one that should have been my first and only warning. "And then, you let me be your stylist." The water in the shower was hot, almost too hot, the kind that steams up the mirrors and your thoughts. Chloe and I had always been this close, orbiting each other since we were kids. We were the same age, shared our first illicit sips of cheap wine at 14, and once cried together in the suffocating quiet of her mom's minivan after her crush had rejected her with a careless shrug. She was bold where I was timid, brilliant where I was hesitant, and completely, unapologetically herself. And she always saw me. She was the first person who ever found me in my mother's closet, a 12-year-old boy with a bolt of emerald green silk wrapped around his shoulders, pretending it was a gown. I had frozen, expecting the laughter, the mockery that would have surely come from anyone else. But Chloe just tilted her head. She never told a soul. She didn't need to. She just asked, her voice soft, "Did it make you feel better?" When I'd managed a trembling nod, she'd smiled. "Then you should keep doing it." When I stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in the towel and a cloud of steam, I nearly stumbled backward. Laid out on her bed was a complete outfit, an unspoken invitation. It was soft, breathable, clearly chosen for comfort, but it was also undeniably, unequivocally feminine. A pair of pale lavender lounge shorts made of a buttery soft material, a white off-shoulder blouse, and resting gently on top, like a quiet, radical statement, was a pale pink bralette. Alongside them sat a folded pair of fluffy socks and a pair of lilac sneakers that had to be hers, slightly worn, well-loved. She wasn't asking me. She was expecting me. I stood frozen in the doorway, the towel clutched in my hand, a jolt running through me, hot and cold at once. My heart wasn't just pounding, it was a frantic drum against my ribs, a wild animal trapped in a cage of bone. Chloe peeked her head around the corner, her expression soft, taking in my deer-in-the-headlights stare. "Everything's clean," she said casually, as if she were offering me a cup of tea. "And it should all be your size." I borrowed a few things from my roommate's never-wears pile. "You promised me a no phone, no judgment weekend, Alex. Right?" My name, my given name, sounded foreign in that moment. I hesitated, my throat tight. "Yeah, but... Chloe, I didn't think it would be like this." She shrugged, leaning against the doorframe, her gaze unwavering. "This isn't about playing dress-up, Alex. This is about space. You told me how exhausted you are, always putting on a face for your roommates, for work, for everyone. Always having to be him." She gestured vaguely, as if batting away a ghost. "Well, you don't have to do that here. This isn't a costume. Think of it as an exhale." I looked back at the clothes on the bed. Not a prank. Not a test. An invitation. An exhale. It took me 20 minutes to get dressed. Not because I was struggling with the clasps or the fabric, but because with each piece of clothing, I was struggling with myself. The bralette was the hardest part. My fingers fumbled with the clasp at the back, a mechanism utterly alien to me. As it settled into place, a strange, profound feeling washed over me, a gentle pressure, a subtle framing of my torso that felt less like a restriction and more like a quiet affirmation. I pulled the soft blouse over my head, letting it fall off one shoulder as intended. The lavender shorts slid on easily, their softness a caress against my skin. I stared at the person in the full-length mirror on the back of the door. The reflection was jarring, surreal. It was me, but it wasn't. The lines of my body were softened, the silhouette unfamiliar. My shoulders, usually hunched in a posture of defense, seemed to sit differently. I saw a flicker of vulnerability in the eyes that stared back, but also a flicker of curiosity. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I stepped into the living room. Chloe didn't gasp or laugh or pull out her phone to take a picture. She just looked up from the couch where she was scrolling through a movie menu, gave me a slow, warm smile that reached her eyes, and patted the cushion next to her. "You look relaxed already," she said, her voice gentle. I sat down slowly, the movement feeling deliberate and new. I instinctively brushed the hem of the blouse down over my thighs. "I feel weird," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "Good weird or bad weird?" I thought about it, really thought about it, for the first time letting the feeling settle instead of fighting it. "Safe weird," I finally said. Like I'm wearing my own skin for the first time, but it's been in storage for a really long time. It's a little stiff. The rest of the evening melted like honey. We watched a ridiculously trashy reality show, and Chloe insisted on painting my nails while we gossiped about people we barely remembered from high school. She chose a dusty rose color, her touch surprisingly steady and focused as she carefully painted each nail. I watched, mesmerized, as the color transformed my hands from something purely functional into something pretty. Later, she insisted on braiding my hair. I didn't have much, just enough to be unruly, but she gathered the strands at the back of my neck with a scrunchie and then wove a tiny, clumsy braid. The feeling of her fingers gently working through my hair was so tender, so devoid of judgment, that I had to bite my lip to keep it from trembling. And I laughed. As we talked and ate popcorn directly from the bag, I laughed in a way I hadn't in months. It wasn't the guarded, performative chuckle I used with my roommates. This was a full, uninhibited laugh that started in my belly and spilled out, free and unashamed. It was the kind of laughter that doesn't ask for permission. The kind of laughter that belonged to someone who wasn't hiding. Sometime after midnight, I must have drifted off on the couch. I woke up on Saturday in a haze of warmth and lavender. The sun was creeping through the half-closed blinds, casting soft gold stripes across the hardwood floor. I stretched beneath the thin throw blanket Chloe had tossed over me, my limbs feeling loose and languid. My legs were smooth against the soft shorts, my arms bare in the blouse. For the first time in my life, I woke up in clothes like these, and my first thought wasn't a panicked rush to change back. It was quiet, peaceful, until Chloe walked in holding 2 mugs of coffee. "Morning, sunshine," she said, plopping down on the armchair beside the couch. She handed me the pink mug, mine, apparently, and took a sip from her own. "I made yours with oat milk, just how you like it." I raised an eyebrow, a small smile playing on my lips. "You never make coffee for your guests." "You're not a guest," she replied easily, her eyes sparkling. "You're staying as someone who deserves a break. And as someone who's not allowed to be him this weekend, remember." The reminder sent a pleasant flutter through my stomach. Not panic, but something else, a mix of excitement, fear, and shimmering possibility. "I still don't really know what that means," I said quietly, my newly painted fingers wrapping around the warm ceramic. She reached over and gently tapped the center of my chest, right on my sternum. "It means this version of you," she said, her voice soft but firm. "The one who lets her shoulders drop. The one who smiles without tightening her jaw. The one who lets herself just exist. She's the only one allowed in this apartment until Monday morning." I didn't know what to say to that. So I took another sip of coffee and, for the first time, I didn't argue. After a simple breakfast of toast and fruit, Chloe threw open the closet in her roommate's room with a dramatic flourish. "Okay, today we're doing a full-day immersion test," she declared. "You're going to live today like it's completely normal to wake up, get dressed, and be the version of you that the world doesn't usually get to see." "That's a big ask," I muttered, standing barefoot in the hallway, feeling suddenly shy again. "You don't have to go outside. You don't even have to talk if you don't want to. But you will get dressed. You will take up space. And I will be here every second to remind you that you're allowed." She pulled out a soft, butter-yellow knit dress with little white sunflowers embroidered around the neckline. It looked airy, innocent, and terrifyingly lovely. "Try this," she said, holding it up against me. "You'll look adorable." "I'll look ridiculous." "You'll look right," she corrected gently, her gaze holding mine. And she was. It fit perfectly. Almost too perfectly, as if it had been waiting for me. I stood in front of the mirror and saw someone I didn't recognize but couldn't stop staring at. Her hair, still holding the faint wave from Chloe's clumsy braid, was tucked behind her ears. Her lashes seemed longer than I remembered. Her collarbones, framed by the dress's scoop neck, looked delicate and proud. She stood with a little more poise, a little more care. I didn't hate her. I wasn't afraid of her. In fact, I kind of wanted to get to know her. The day passed in soft, beautiful waves. We painted with watercolors at the kitchen table, a messy, joyful affair that was more about the feeling of the brush on paper than the final product. I painted a blurry, abstract sunset of oranges and purples. Chloe painted a girl standing at the edge of a field, her yellow dress catching the breeze, her back to the viewer as she looked out at an endless horizon. She didn't say it, but I knew that girl was me. We danced in the kitchen to 90s pop music, loud and unapologetic. I let myself go, twirling until I was dizzy, the hem of the sunflower dress spinning out around me. I laughed when it caught on the edge of the counter, a pure, unadulterated sound of joy. Chloe snapped a picture on her phone and called it art. We talked for hours, excavating memories and secrets. I told her about the night I first tried eyeliner in the pitch dark of my bedroom at 15, and how I'd scrubbed my face raw with soap before morning, terrified someone would see the smudged remains. "You always knew, didn't you?" I asked, my voice small. Chloe looked at me with a profound gentleness that made my chest ache. "No," she said slowly. "I never knew who you were. I just always knew that he wasn't all of it." Later that night, after a long bubble bath that smelled of rose petals, after we'd sat on the couch with green clay face masks on, eating chocolate ice cream directly from the carton, I found myself in front of the mirror again. The bathroom door was locked, the apartment was quiet, and the world outside was muted. I stared at her. At me. This wasn't a game. This wasn't pretend. This was a girl. A real one. A scared, quiet, complicated girl who had spent her entire life being told to sit down, speak deeper, stop feeling so much. And I had a terrifying, thrilling suspicion that she wasn't going to disappear just because Monday was coming. Sunday felt different. Not like the first day of something exciting, but like the last day of something precious and fragile. I sat on Chloe's bed in a pair of soft cotton pajamas she'd lent me, sky blue with little white stars. No makeup today. No fancy dress. Just me. Hair tied up in a messy bun. Clean skin. Painted nails. Still her. Still not him. Chloe patted in quietly, 2 bowls of cereal in hand. She handed me one and sat cross-legged beside me, the bed dipping with her weight. "You're quiet," she said after a moment. I nodded, staring at the cheerful little O's floating in the milk. "It's almost over." "What is?" she asked. "This, me?" "No," she said firmly, setting her bowl aside with a soft clink. "You don't get to say that. This isn't a role you're playing. This isn't some vacation you booked from yourself. You didn't become someone else this weekend, Alex. You just let her out. You revealed her." I stared down into my bowl. "But I can't live like this." "Not all the time." "Why not?" I opened my mouth, then closed it. The old answers, "It's weird, people will stare, I'll lose my job, my family won't understand," all felt thin and flimsy, like excuses I didn't believe in anymore. "I'm scared," I finally whispered. "That's fair," she said softly. "That's so fair. But don't confuse fear with a good reason to go back into hiding." We spent the rest of Sunday mostly in a comfortable silence, reading, listening to music, and taking long, sleepy naps in the afternoon sun that streamed through the window. Every now and then, I'd catch Chloe glancing at me with something like pride in her eyes, like she was watching someone crawl out of a dark cave for the very first time and feel the warmth of the sun on their skin. That night, I packed my duffel bag slowly. It felt like a betrayal. I folded not just the pajamas and borrowed tops, but the softness, the calm, the quiet peace of the weekend. Each fold of fabric felt like pressing a delicate flower into the pages of a book, hoping to preserve its shape. I sat on the edge of the bed, bag zipped, my hands clasped in my lap. "I don't want to leave," I said, the words heavy in the air. "You don't have to leave her," Chloe replied from the doorway. "The world is big and complicated, I get it. But that doesn't mean you have to lock her back in the box the second you walk out that door." Monday morning came like a slap in the face. I changed in the bathroom, the ritual a grim reversal of Friday night. Jeans, hoodie, sneakers. The armor of the person I was expected to be. It felt heavy, suffocating. I looked in the mirror and hated how quickly he came back, how easily the softness in my face hardened into a familiar, weary mask. I stepped out. Chloe looked up from the kitchen table and her smile faltered into a frown. "You okay?" I shrugged, the fabric of the hoodie coarse against my neck. "Do I look okay?" "No," she said with brutal honesty. "You look like someone who just buried something important." That hit harder than a physical blow. I stood there, frozen in the middle of her living room, until Chloe walked over. She didn't hug me. Instead, she pressed a small, neatly wrapped package into my hand. "Open this on the bus," she said. "Not now." I nodded, my throat too tight for words. This time, I did hug her, clinging to her for a moment too long, breathing in the scent of coconut and safety. I didn't want to let go. An hour later, as the city blurred into a gray smear outside the bus window, I carefully unwrapped the gift. Inside was the butter-yellow sunflower dress, folded perfectly. Tucked into the neckline was a tiny card. In Chloe's familiar, loopy handwriting, it simply read, "She doesn't go away just because you change your clothes. Give her a name. Give her space. She'll wait for you." I pressed the soft fabric of the dress to my chest and closed my eyes, the ghost of sunflowers against my skin. I didn't cry. Not this time. Because for the first time, I knew she wasn't a ghost. She was real. She was still there, waiting patiently just beneath the surface. And I knew, with a certainty that was both terrifying and exhilarating, that I was going to come back for her.